Hey, what's up, guys? You're listening to a brand new episode of Speaking Wrestling with Elvis Arroyo. I am Elvis Arroyo, and this is episode 11. And again, guys, I want to thank you for joining me for another week. We got lots to talk this week. We're going to be talking about Raw and SmackDown. I'm also going to give you guys my performers of the week and floppers of the week, do a little bit of AEW Fyter Fest quick take, and I'm going to be talking about a third promotion you guys should be keeping an eye on. But before we get started, I want to remind you guys that you can check out this podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts, and you can also check us out on YouTube over at Speaking Wrestling on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and like and give us a 5-star review and rate. And if you want to get in contact with the podcast, you can also reach me at Speaking Wrestle on Twitter and over on Instagram at Speaking Wrestling. And I hope everybody's been having a great week. Happy 4th of July to everybody. And I hope it was as explosive as things got kicked off this past Monday night on Raw. Raw was live from Dallas, Texas this past week. And this week, things got kicked off with a Falls Count Anywhere match featuring Braun Strowman and Bobby Lashley to kick off Monday Night Raw. And this match was all over the place. Bobby Lashley and Braun Strowman looking strong through this match. And like I said, things got kicked off explosive this week as we saw Braun Strowman hit a spear through Bobby Lashley right through the Raw LED light boards, crash to the backstage, and explosions were just going off right through all the cables and through all the monitors. It looked great. This got a great reaction from the crowd in Dallas, Texas, and I'm sure it got a great reaction from home, as I was shocked to see that this was actually going down on an episode of Monday Night Raw. Definitely led you to think that Paul Heyman was up to this, and the feel of the show, like I said, right from the very beginning, was just totally different. And this, what a way to kick off Monday Night Raw. And you got Corey Graves saying, holy shit. You got commentators going quiet for the rest of the moment. Bobby Lashley and Strowman, they took the end of this. They took a very hard fall right through the backstage area. And there was, like I said, there was monitors or electric soundboards going off. And they had to come in and put it out with fire extinguishers. It looked really good. And then they had this camera that was far off to the right side of the stage, just looking down, having like this bird's eye view of the scene. And this definitely felt real at a moment, and it's something that I've been really advocating for it to feel more real and for it to have a shock value to it that, you know, as a viewer leads you to believe that what you're seeing was not supposed to happen, that this is in fact live. And it went well, and kudos to the WWE because they pulled this off the first 20 minutes to give us this. And like I said, the commentators, Cole and Renee, they went quiet. Corey was down there checking out the scene himself. And Corey, like I said, he had one of the lines of the night coming out of this as he was approved to say, holy shit. And definitely gave a feel to the rest of the show going into Monday night. And definitely the rest of the week, as we saw on SmackDown, you know, we saw Kofi flipping the bird, and more foul language is being used on the show more than often. Definitely a vibe to the show. And again, I've been a very good advocate for these backstage scenes, and they all played a role in telling the story of Monday Night Raw this week, from, you know, backstage of Braun Strowman and Bobby Lashley being taken in an ambulance and taken away. The realism that was shown throughout the night by all the superstars commentating and, you know, saying their get wells to Bobby Lashley and Braun Strowman, and feeling the effect of what it meant for the show and what it means for the locker room, that, you know, superstars are going out there and putting their lives at risk and for the entertainment, but for them to acknowledge that the rest of the night, the announcers, there was a replay, you know, every top of the hour showing what happened. And again, I like that because that lets the audience know and lets you know, if you're tuning in, that, you know, something like what happened to kick off Monday Night Raw happened. And if you missed it, you missed it, and it's going to want to keep you tuned in to see what else is going to happen. And it definitely did. And one thing that played a big role into keeping the audience and the viewers into the program this week, both Raw and SmackDown, was backstage segments. And as we saw Raw, there was a thread throughout the show which featured the Club, AJ Styles, and Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson, and Ricochet, the United States champion. There was this thread throughout the night that the Club was trying to get Ricochet to say that, he cannot beat AJ Styles, and if he could, and he said that he could, and they went back, told AJ that he was talking trash. Really, he just said that, if he gets another shot at AJ, he'll beat him. AJ didn't like that Ricochet was talking about him behind his back to his brothers in the club, so he went out and face to face and put up a challenge to him for the United States Championship that night. Gave him a nice slap in the face, and Ricochet gave him one right back. And I like that. That's the aggressiveness that I've been seeing and noticing from some of the superstars in the last couple of weeks. And I think it's great. You want to show that. You want to show that your champions and your superstars are backstage and they're hungry. Guys like AJ aren't going to take this. Guys like Ricochet, who's only been in the WWE main roster for a few months, he's the new United States champion, and good for him. But he shouldn't be backing down from anyone, including AJ Styles. And he proved himself right here in this moment. And I knew the vibe was different. And though it was a same main event from last week, I think the backstage segments and the story that was told throughout the night made you forget about that. Never cross your mind that you're going to see last week's match in the main event spot once again. So I got to say that the shows this week definitely felt different. They felt different. The vibe, the commentary, it had a different feel. And even the Mike Kanellis and Maria Kanellis segment, as we saw this week on Monday Night Raw, as they challenged Becky and Seth backstage to a match, Maria said, "Me and my bitch take on you and yours," speaking to Seth, and he was speaking about his bitch being Mike Kanellis, and we got ourselves a match. And in the scene, we got Maria Kanellis, not wanting to take a part in this mixed tag team match when it was her turn to tag in, and she didn't want to go one-on-one with Becky, and pulls out the microphone and says, "I'm pregnant," on national TV. Shock Valley, shocking moment. And I do want to add that she is, in fact, really pregnant, which made this even more better. And we got to see Mike Kanellis be embarrassed and humiliated on national television by his own wife, that he's not a man enough to get the job done, whether in the ring or bed, however you want to take it. I think she meant in all aspects of their marriage. And then we saw Becky tap out Mike Kanellis, a little bit of intergender action. And I want to quickly bring up the whole intergender note that I took on this, between Mike Kanellis tapping out to the Disarmer to Becky Lynch this past Monday, is during the scrummage post AEW Fyter Fest this past weekend, guys. Tony Khan was asked if they're going to have any intergender matches in AEW, and he said no. And him being the chairman, the CEO of the company and the founder, he's not going to allow any women and men competing in the ring together. He said it's in his taste, and it will not be featured on their show. And, I just, quickly, just minds start thinking, was this a little bit of shot to Tony Khan as to kind of like, all right, you say you're not going to do it, well, we'll do it. And they did it in a way that's tasteful to many people. So, Tony Khan, he didn't say, I don't believe he really said the word, it's in his taste, but I would definitely, those tones were definitely there, that's what he meant. It's not something that, his cup of tea of professional wrestling. And if has a company and he doesn't like it, why would he want that on his promotion? So I would think that, this little segment right here of Mike Kanellis tapping out to Becky and getting a little bit of intergender play in the ring might have been a little bit of shot. Who knows? You can think about that if you'd like or not. It just got me thinking about it. But again, back to the show being so different. Superstars, their commentary, their body language, Bobby Lashley's promo on Twitter to Braun Strowman, basically saying that the next time he sees Braun Strowman, he's going to send him to the morgue. I mean, did he literally just say that next time he sees Braun Strowman, he's going to kill the man? What's got all these superstars and what's got the show going? Something must be going on that's got WWE shifted in a whole new direction in a matter of weeks, and really in a matter of one episode of Monday Night Raw. And it's got to be Paul Heyman. And as you know, Paul Heyman has been in the news along with Eric Bischoff, as they've been instructed to be the directors of executive directors of Monday Night Raw and SmackDown. Eric Bischoff being on SmackDown, Paul being on Raw. And Paul having his fingerprints all over the show, and it was very evident as I was watching this show. It just got me thinking, that sounds like a Paul Heyman idea. This has got to be a Paul and Bruce idea. I really think that the Mike Kanellis and thing, and Maria Kanellis segment immediately just said, that sounds like a Bruce thing, especially with Maria in the end saying that, if she wanted to get impregnated, she'd just ask Becky to do it next time. Funny line. Again, good segment. Go back and check it out. Also, go back and check out that Kofi Samoa Joe interaction they had on SmackDown. Paul Heyman's influence is already being placed on WWE programming, that it's shedding a little bit over on SmackDown, though he is not fully taken over SmackDown. That's Eric Bischoff's position when he gets here. It's been reported that Eric Bischoff has not started at WWE yet. Speculation it's that he will be starting after Extreme Rules pay-per-view, and I think that's okay. I think set it up for him, and then we'll get some clean storylines the night after Extreme Rules. I think that's when you'll really see matchups headed into SummerSlam, and it'll be intriguing television post Extreme Rules. But again, back to Paul Heyman directly in this past week's episode of Monday Night Raw, and the difference that we saw throughout the show, right from the get-go to the very ending of the show, as we saw the close of the show, the new faction in WWE, the Club, and that thread of backstage storylines with them came to fruition at the end of the show when we saw AJ really show us his side of where he's siding, and he's siding with his boys in the Club back from the Japan days, and they're looking to run roughshod. And that's another interesting thing here, because it draws interest to the fact of, is Gallows and Anderson leaving WWE, as it now it's being reported that they signed a new deal and they're going to be sticking around. Does this have anything to do with them being a tag team with AJ? Could this be the reason why they're staying? I think so, but again, I like the fact that we have a heel faction on Raw, and I think that's what's been missing for a while. I know we've done away with, the Wyatt family in the past years, but I think having a faction does well for the company. There's top heels, and a guy like AJ Styles to be the top heel running roughshod on Monday nights would be great. If they can turn this over to get Seth involved, and maybe AJ once again have another title run, I don't mind that. But this is once again, it feels a lot like Paul Heyman had his hands all over the show, and it was great. And we saw new superstars. We saw Street Profits, NXT champions, NXT Tag Team champions to be exact, showed up on Monday Night Raw. And again, another one of those moments of you're watching TV and you cannot believe what's happening. You cannot believe that Street Profits are on a random episode of Monday Night Raw, so you're intrigued to keep your eyes on the show, because you don't know if they're going to be in action, and you don't know who they're going to interact, as they had a backstage segment with Paul Heyman, and you would never think that Paul Heyman is going to have any interaction with Street Profits, and it went well. It went very, very well, and I like this. This was one of the best episodes of Monday Night Raw in a long time. I will say that this episode and the one where they were in LA about a few weeks ago, probably one of my favorites of maybe the last year. So does this start the wave of the creative influence of Paul Heyman going forward? The show got great reviews. It only lets me to think, is this the wave that Vince is finally going to get on and say, we're on to something good, let's stick to it? Because if it's working this well, then let's do it. Again, I want to bring up the fact that WWE, they'll have one great week, or they'll produce one great thing, and they'll try to go for it the next week, and they strike out. And I think that's the only thing that I'm hoping won't happen in this. I hope the wave that we're on with Paul Heyman running things now is a good one, because I think the company will be successful. I believe the only competition WWE has is itself. It's itself and its audience. And shows like this and weeks like this really speak well for the company. And I spoke about the NXT Tag Team Champions being on Raw. No sign of the Raw Tag Team Champions on Raw. But nevertheless, we saw a New Day taking on the Viking Raiders this week on Raw. And it was the only tag team that was really featured on this week's episode of Raw. Unlike over on SmackDown, where we have Daniel Bryan and Rowan and the New Day and Heavy Machinery being involved in tag team storylines there. But it's good to see that the tag teams are being featured in main event spots, as we saw this past week on SmackDown, as Heavy Machinery was in the main event taking on a strange bedfellow duo of Kevin Owens and Dolph Ziggler. But great action. And again, you have more of your tag teams being utilized, and since Daniel Bryan and Rowan have been in that tag team mix, they've really elevated the tag team titles. And, I was really hoping that, at some point Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn would go after those. But like I mentioned, Kevin Owens and Dolph Ziggler being put in the spot. And if they would win over Heavy Machinery this past week on SmackDown, they would automatically be entered into a tag team triple threat at Extreme Rules with Heavy Machinery, Daniel Bryan and Rowan, and of course, Dolph Ziggler and Kevin Owens. And it was good to see Kevin Owens and Dolph Ziggler in new roles. It seems like as if maybe they're shedding skin on the past characters they were in, as we saw Dolph Ziggler and Kevin Owens in a little bit of a comedy duo. I like this. And we've seen this. We see the odd couples of tag teams being joined together, in strange roles. And in this one, we saw Kevin Owens, as earlier in the night, he was hosting the Kevin Owens show with Shane McMahon and Drew McIntyre as their guests, and brought out Dolph Ziggler. And it's strange to think that, if you're going to form a tag team, it would be Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. But these two guys were going at it. They feel like they still have a say in being the next WWE champion, and going after Kofi Kingston. As we know, Dolph Ziggler is out here every week reminding us that it should have been him. And we got Kevin Owens, explaining to him that he's better than Kofi. And Shane McMahon thought wisely enough that it would be a great idea to have these two in a tag team. And again, one thing that really played a lot into these guys' role through the night was those backstage segments with them, and the comments about Owens eating hot dogs and looking like a guy who eats hot dogs, and Kevin Owens never turning it down or saying that that's not true. He likes hot dogs, and it's not just about that. It's just that this would make for a good tag team. They went ahead and got a loss, so they will not be in that tag team match at Extreme Rules. But I don't think that this is the last that we're going to see of Dolph Ziggler and Kevin Owens. If it leads into a Dolph Ziggler Kevin Owens match at Extreme Rules or SummerSlam, or we see a different odd pairing or something else, whatever. But I think keeping these two guys together might not be a bad idea. Again, they got a loss, but I think those backstage segments really sparked something in between these guys, that they got something there. And it's an odd pairing. I mean, it's Kevin Owens, and you think of the type of person he is and the character that he's on TV, and then you take a guy like Dolph Ziggler, who, again, you take his character and who he is on TV, and they're not far from who they really are. I really believe that their personalities are there in the character, blended in with what they're being asked to portray. And these two guys, great mic skills, great comedic timing. I mean, Dolph's a comedian, but I think just a natural funny guy is Kevin Owens. So will this pairing last? I'd like for it to stick around. And the SmackDown Tag Team division looks good. Everything looks good. I really think that television this week was great for a lot of superstars. We saw Miz take on Elias in a 2 out of 3 falls this week on Raw. Miz looked good, man. Go back and watch that if you didn't watch it. The fans were just on the Miz side all over. And he looked so great. He was over as a babyface. Great week for the Miz. Another guy that looked really good this week was Andrade, as he finally went one-on-one with the man that's been following or looking after him on Apollo Crews, or it's just Apollo now. And they had a great match. I mean, I think the crowd didn't like it. It was very quiet in there, but overall, great match, great showing for Andrade. Very, very aggressive. I know I wrote that in my notes. He looks amazing, and he's entitled to a push. I mean, the guy is every week proving himself, whether it's in the ring or backstage segment, and the guy looks sharp. So I really hope that things are coming up for Andrade very, very soon. And also, Lacey Evans was in action this week. She looked great. Cesaro was in action. He looked dominant. Bayley looked great this week, and Drake Maverick. the new 24/7 title winner. Greatest week of his life, as he brought his wife to Monday Night Raw for their honeymoon. I mean, come on, if you're not bringing your wife to a honeymoon, to Monday Night Raw, you're doing it wrong. So kudos to Drake Maverick. And look, he got a roll-up win against R-Truth backstage and sneaked up on him. Great for him. He's out on his honeymoon. And great for Drake Maverick. Good for them. Good for them. Him and his wife look somewhat happy, relieved that he finally has the title. But kudos to him. Kudos for them. And speaking of couples looking good, some might say that Seth and Becky are a couple that look good, but are they in fact looking good? I don't know. I've kind of, if you listen to the podcast, I've kind of gotten sour on Becky post WrestleMania and her run that she's been having, and then now being tied to Seth and bringing these two storylines and characters together. It's kind of bleeding into me liking Seth a little. I'm not saying I'm not liking these two anymore. I'm still huge fans of them and I'll support them. I just think when you mix in these storylines with Seth Rollins, who as alone, you take these two individuals and you put them, stand them alone on their own, they're great and they're successful. And when you bring them together, it seems like it kind of mixes things up and confuses their journey that they're on. And because now it's if you're looking at it as a Seth Rollins fan, it's Seth Rollins, it's like the time that Seth Rollins had a girlfriend, or vice versa with Becky. It's like, remember the one time that Becky had a boyfriend. It's just like that. I mean, and the backstage promo that they had this week was a little cringy for me. It seems like, look, we know that they're obviously a real couple by now, thanks to Michael Cole. I think they're playing couple on TV, and I think they need to be a little bit more of themselves. I think they are dating in real life, but when they show up on Raw, they're scripted as a couple, and I think it came off across this week. And again, Seth last week going on a tear, being very overconfident in himself and the company as he put down Will Ospreay, and pretty much the rest of the wrestling scene and anybody else out there. I said that Becky might have something to do with that. It maybe might be influencing Seth Rollins, because she's very active on Twitter and she doesn't hold back. I mean, doesn't hold back to the point where it's, makes me pull back on wanting to read what she says, because it's cringeworthy or it's just too over the top, where it's just like, all right, this is too much. And I think maybe that kind of influenced Seth a little bit last week. And, they came off a show like Stomping Grounds, which Seth and Becky were the main focal of the show and carried that show from start to finish. So I think they were coming off of a very good show and feeling very high from their performances. And it just led to maybe Seth and Becky being together. And, why don't you just go ahead and say that you're the best the best wrestler? Say that you're this and that, and maybe got in Seth's head a little bit and said, yeah, I'll do it. And he went ahead and did it. And, a bit out of character out of Seth Rollins. And it was, because this week Seth Rollins walked back those comments that he said on Twitter a week ago. He mentions that it's not him. I'm paraphrasing here, guys. It's available on Twitter, if you have a handheld device. But paraphrasing, he's just saying, he wants to apologize, for him making comments, which he said about who has the biggest bank account, when talking about who's the best wrestler in the world. I think money, doesn't matter. If you're the best, if you're making a lot of money, it just means you're working for a company that's paying you a lot of money. It still doesn't mean that you can be on top and be the shittiest wrestler, or you can be on the most shittiest company and be the best wrestler. So it's however you want to look at it. But for Seth Rollins making those comments last week, and fans, he got some backlash from that because he took it a little bit too far. And yes, I think it was right of him to apologize for the comments that he made, and apologize for, just his ego really speaking out, over Twitter. He made up for Will Ospreay, and I think those guys are in a better place now. I think mutual respect is there. I think it's always been there, but when you want to talk about, your bank account, who's the better wrestler, and and put others down, it's bad on your character. And it was very out of Seth Rollins' character. Seth, like I said, Seth Rollins, for standing up for the WWE and standing up for himself, there's no shame in that. That's what you're supposed to do. And I would believe that that's what the company would want him to do. All right, guys, it's time to give you guys my MVPs and floppers of the week. My MVPs, most valuable performers of the week, goes to Lashley and Strowman. I mean, the guys just went out there and nearly killed themselves to start off Monday night this week for our entertainment and our viewership. I mean, they put their lives and their body on the line, and kudos to those guys. Those guys are my performers of the week, if not performers of the month. And it's only July, guys, and those guys have already knocked it out of the ballpark with their performance this past week. And Lashley, he had a great promo over on Twitter, via Twitter. Again, he said he's gonna take Braun Strowman to the morgue the next time he sees him. So this feud is just really getting interesting, if we're being honest. And I'm intrigued by it. This Lashley's been looking great. He's always awesome. And Strowman, man, I think Strowman's being written off TV from this. They've had a great week. So how can you not? How can you not give these guys the most valuable performer of the week? And on to my flopper of the week. You ready for this one, guys? AEW's Fyter Fest. No, I know. I'm not shitting on the company. I'm not trashing the company. I'm not saying that it sucked. I'm just saying, from what I watched this week in wrestling, what flopped for me was Fyter Fest. And let's get into it. I did say we're going to give a Fyter Fest quick take, so let's get into it. Yes, the show for me, it wasn't a hit. It flopped, but there was some good stuff out of it. And it was, for me, what I got out of it was I got to see more AEW talent that we're going to see on television. So that's one good thing. The set looked great. I think they're still having a little bit of, production issues. But again, new company. Should we give them that excuse for how they, condone themselves as being, the next alternative, the next biggest brand in wrestling? By the next show, those need to be worked out. I definitely say by All Out, you got to work out your kinks. You got to get your ducks in a row for me to really feel more confident in this. I really feel like this show maybe brought you down a little bit, especially coming off a very, very successful show like Double or Nothing this past month in May. But this show was not that bad. I mean, of course the kickoff is something to talk about. I want to start there. And if you didn't see the kickoff to AEW's the Fyter Fest, the buy-in, it's available on YouTube. It's a little bit cringeworthy there. They had the Jabali, he's the CEO. This whole thing was jointed with this gaming festival, fighting gaming festival, brought to you by CEO Gaming, and the CEO of the company was in a match, and it wasn't that much of a disaster, but it really made you think that if this is what this company is going to produce, is how bearable and tolerable is it going to be, or how better is it? And look, I'm not saying that the show was complete trash, like I said, but it definitely had its hit and misses, and it definitely made you really think about what you liked and what you didn't like. And one of the things that's being talked about the most that came out of the show, which is why I think the show overall wasn't that great of a success, because you can only nitpick what you liked and what you didn't like overall from what we saw this past week on Monday Night Raw, which you were intrigued and you were, viewed to the television because you did not know what was going to happen, and you were okay with what was going to happen. But we got to talk about that chair shot that Cody Rhodes took from Sean Spears, formerly known as Ty Dillinger. A headshot, straight to the head, no protection. Man, it looked nasty. It sounded hard. Cody got split up really bad by the head of that chair. He got 12 staples. One thing that was brought up right away, and I don't know why they do this, and it's one thing that I always don't understand. And it's CTE is the big talk that's going around in sports, and especially combat sports like professional wrestling, sport where you're more open for head trauma and for injuries. A chair shot to the head like this, when we're living in an era where CTE is known and we know the damages that that can do to the human brain, should you be taking a chair shot like this in 2019? Is it necessary? I think for a promotion like this that wants to get a buzz, I think you do a chair shot like that, and also to maybe let the viewership and the audience know that we're an alternative to what and that's the WWE, and this is the way we're doing things. And Tony Khan and Young Bucks went back on them. They also went back and said, the shot was a mistake. They're not going to do chair shots. They're not going to do that. And immediately the talk about concussion started coming up, and JR immediately, almost as if this was scripted. And this is why I kind of, yes, it was scripted into the show, but I think that it was planned, not for the chair shot itself and the telling the story of what we're going to see as Shawn Spears is going to have a rivalry with Cody, but I think it was in place to get people talking. I think if you want to get eyes on you, like Eric Bischoff said, he even wrote a book on it. Controversy creates cash. I think that's what they were going for. I think they're taking a little plays off the Eric Bischoff book, and they came in hard into this pay-per-view with a chair shot like that, and it got people talking. Certainly got people talking more about that one thing than about the rest of the show. And the rest of the show was great. Darby Allin went one-on-one with Cody Rhodes. They went to a time limit, and we saw Jon Moxley and Joey Janela in an unsanctioned match, and man, that match was brutal, especially once those tags came out. I was just like biting my teeth and just getting through that, and just seeing Joey's facials was great. I mean, and also that elbow drop off the ladder was great. Moxley just being thrown into those boards with the barbed wire. Janela took some boards with barbed wire as well. Steel chair wrapped in barbed wire. I mean, talk about one of those death matches. This was an okay death match. Again, Tony Khan mentioned that you will not be seeing matches like this on TNT, just for pay-per-views, and I think that's good. I don't want to see this every week on TV. I don't want to see that. I think overall the show was okay, but I think they were outdone by WWE television this week. Again, there were some rough spots in the show that I think should start making people question, how good is AEW? And, they need to get better. And I know there's those excuses of they're new. Give them a break. If you're gonna compete with the WWE, you need to be WWE quality. You don't need to be WWE, but you need to be WWE quality, and they need to get ready for this, because in just a few short months, they're gonna be on television to the masses. They're gonna be back on television, and it's gonna be another company, and it's gonna be, again, it is an alternative, because if you're changing those channels, or you're looking down, your menu guide, you're going to see AEW wrestling, you're going to check it out, what's this? And they're going to check it out and might like what they see. I definitely think that if they're tuning in to AEW television and MJF is on the screen, they are really going to be entertained. So that brings me to my last portion of the show, and I wanted to talk to you guys about the third promotion that I think you guys should be keeping your eyes on, and that is MLW. And this week, MLW, which is on BN Sports, BN Sports is now featured on PlayStation Vue. If you have YouTube television, you have Sling, they're all there for you. And if you haven't been keeping up with MLW, there's just a great variety of wrestling down there. They have lucha style, technical style, hardcore style, and some familiar faces and voices down there. I know Rich Bocchini and Jim Cornette are the commentators down there. And we have L.A. Park, former La Park of WCW. Sammy Callahan is down there. Jimmy Havoc, if you like what you've seen of Jimmy Havoc on AEW, he's on a weekly basis featured down there. They have the Von Air. Austin Aries is there. Brian Pillman Jr., the Hart Foundation, Teddy Hart, Davey Boy Smith. They're all down there. Guys, if you're looking for a third promotion, watch wrestling, and now you could, because if you have PlayStation Vue, you have access to MLW television, and I would definitely suggest that you check out their show this weekend, which is going to feature their champion Tom Lawler defending the MLW championship against Jacob Fatu, who is, in my eyes, who should be one of the most hottest free agents and is in the eyes of the WWE. Definitely, he has the lineage. He's Samoan. He's related to Roman Reigns and the Usos. He is the cousin of the Usos, as he is last name is Fatu. He was trained by Rikishi. Definitely check it out. Check out BN Sports, guys. It should be available wherever you guys are streaming. If you don't have BN Sports, they are available every Monday's new episodes on YouTube. The show runs about as long as an episode of NXT. That's if you guys haven't been checking out MLW, but if you have, you know all the talent that's been going down there, the amazing wrestling down there, and it has this vibe of ECW. And again, I think this is an interesting time in wrestling, and especially, like I mentioned, the fact that there's 3 promotions come this fall. If you're flipping through, your streaming television services, you're going to find that there's 3 companies on television on prime time every week. You have WWE television with Raw and SmackDown. You're going to have AEW weekly television, and you're going to have MLW on a weekly television basis on BN Sports, available every Saturday. It's an interesting time because it feels like the Monday Night Wars. It feels like the 90s again. When you got WWE, you have AEW, which is, in a sense, WCW. And it really feels like you're watching WCW when you tune into AEW. And then now you have MLW Fusion, which very much has the feel of an ECW to it. And again, you got Jim Cornette on commentating. It's a very entertaining show. I would definitely recommend for you guys to watch it. If you're going to watch anything this week, check out MLW. That's on the What to Do. And that's going to do it for me, guys, this week. Thank you guys so much for checking out this episode. Help spread the word of this podcast. Your guys' support goes a very, very long way in helping this podcast grow. And before I want to get out here, I want to give a quick shout out to Half K Podcast. They are a NXT review. They've been going back, guys, and reviewing NXT from the very beginning. And I'm talking about the beginning. I'm talking about NXT season 1. Yes, we're talking about the Daniel Bryan pre-Nexus. They go back and do a review on every single episode for that. So if you guys want to go back and watch it with them, get a review, check them out. They're over on Instagram. That's the Half K Podcast. Go ahead and give them a shout out and let them know that you heard them here on Speaking Wrestling. And also, if you want to get in touch with me, I'm over at Speaking Wrestle on Twitter and Speaking Wrestling on Instagram, guys. Be sure to subscribe and like on YouTube if you haven't already. Have a great week, guys, and we'll do it again next Friday. Bye-bye.